sometime back around early 90s, 92, 94, the people living below poverty line were over 56%. However, now, despite the fact that the population is growing very fast, at a rate of about 3.2%, I am happy to note that people living below poverty line has come down to only 24%. So these are great achievements. However, having stated this, the challenge that we still have, that there is still problem with the equidistribution of the wealth. And this SAGE is one of the areas which will effectively distribute money to the most needy, the poorest of the poor. This 23,000 shillings, that is going to those who are 65 and above. Right now, there is one area where we went, a lady was given 23,000 shillings, and the first 23,000 she got, she picked 15,000 and put as a deposit for buying an animal for breeding. And the balance of 15,000, she was waiting for the next input. So you can imagine that they actually, with this little money, they are able even to invest. So you can imagine that there are those who actually use this money for the first time to buy clothing for Christmas and to buy meat for the first time for Christmas. So the challenge in the district side is real. And so it is important that we see how best this can permeate the whole country. It is gratifying to note, Mr. Chairman, that this social protection is embedded in the manifesto of the ruling party. It is also important to note that it is also embedded in the National Development Plan. So it is now right and fitting that the members of parliament come on board, give meat to the presentation by the ministry responsible for gender, labor and social development to bring to cabinet a very strong position, convince government to make this part and parcel of the annual recurrent budget. As I'm talking now, there are countries where they give about 1% of their recurrent budget, the yearly budget, to social protection. Last year's budget of Uganda was 10 trillion. And this coming financial year, we expect it to go to about 10.5 trillion. So if you give as a policy or as by law 1%, that means this financial year, social protection alone would be getting 100 billion, which is almost 3 times what the whole ministry is getting. And this therefore would make it possible for us to roll over to the whole country very fast. Because if at 23 and you have the total would require about 35 billion shillings. So it would be sustainable once it is passed as a policy or as a law. And this can only come through this meeting that we are having today, and then it is taken by the line ministry to cabinet, and once it is approved, then it would be able to be sustained. Definitely we support our development partners in bringing this, and I must agree with you that it will not be very easy to get out of this now that we have started. It will not be very advisable to get out. So we should find all ways possible to make sure that we remain there. This is my personal advice. And our development partners are doing their part. We as parliament, we as government should also come on board, like we are already fighting certain areas. The issue of the revenue to GDP in our country, we need to put our heads together. As I am talking now, His Excellency the President has rightly directed the ministry responsible for finance, planning and economic development to move the savings, the revenue to GDP from the current 13% to the average for sub-Saharan Africa, which is at 18%. And we can only achieve this in the next 2 calendar years if we can put our heads together. And once we do this, if we reach 18, there will be very little that we would require from our development partners, because then the amount available will be really big enough to sustain all that we require as a government, as a people, to finance our priority activities. So I appeal to us to have a meeting of minds, one, to increase the revenue to GDP, and secondly, related to that, to increase on our savings to GDP, which currently also is rather on the low side, which is at about 10%. So I personally believe that when we move together in this dimension, we should be in a position to really have a win-win situation. A mention was made about the budget framework paper. The Budget Act indicates that we should have received from you by 15th of February. And I'm happy that most ministries, departments, and agencies did fulfill this. We have received all the contribution from the various ministries, departments, and agencies, and we are now in the process of finalizing the budget consultation with various ministries. And on the 1st and 2nd of next month, we are going to have a national budget preparation for the whole country, and this will take place here in Kampala. So there is still room for you to give more input as far as gender issues are concerned, so that these are captured in the coming budget. But we should assure you that the budget for this financial year is quite tight, and in case it does not pick some of the areas that you would want to be picked this financial year, please hold us excuse. So I thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for giving me this opportunity. I am on board. I don't know whether I've spoken as the MP for Jonam or I've spoken as Minister of State. I thank you very much.